allow me to share with you all that this second panel discussion that's coming up would be all about digital media and e-commerce. What's really the way forward? So some stimulating conversations from our side on the screen. We'll have with us our panelists, of course, but before that, allow me to take you through the bullet points that are sort of going to be covered in the panel. So there would be discussion on regulation of OTT platforms. Yes, that's the talk of the town. That's the talk of the world right now. The hits and the misses, the impact of IT rules on the news and the e-commerce policy trends also, and the impact of consumer protection rules 2021, and of course, so much more that's coming up. Our moderator, Tanu Banerjee, partner Khaitan & Co, of course, is right there joining us on the screen. Hi, Tanu. And
hi,
Tanu. Thank you for the greetings. Then if I talk about you specialize in the technology and media laws, and you've advised several technology and media clients, of course, the OTT platforms, the digital media companies, the production houses, the retail platforms, on a range of commercial transactions and regulatory issues. Happy to be hosting you, Tanu. And Tanu, before handing it over to you, of course, inviting your panelists out there. So allow me to please warmly welcome with a good round of cheer, happiness quotient, of course, intact, Vandana Seth, VP, Tata 1mg. Well, she's the one who heads the legal and compliance vertical of 1mg Group and manages the legal compliance, secretarial, and also the fundraisers. And she's a part of the women leadership team at 1mg Group, as well as, of course, for multiple entities and group companies out there. Warm welcome to you. And with that, welcoming up next on board with us, we have A.N. Neelakantan, who's the legal head, ladies and gentlemen, Information Technology Procurements and Contracts Department at Reliance Industries. And in the past, he's worked with Matrimony.com, Reliance Big Entertainment, Wipro, Reliance Communications. Well, it's 20 years of legal experience for Mr. Neelakantan, a registered advocate at Delhi, that he is, and of course, a qualified solicitor in the UK. And with that, very happily welcoming you, Ashish Chandra, the Associate General Counsel, WhatsApp. So, well, Ashish, you of course are a seasoned e-commerce, mobile payment, telecom, digital media, and the technology industry. We would say insider with 19 years of experience in serving the market leaders and the market movers really in India and Southeast Asia. And of course, we'll be happy to be greeting you and hearing you, because you have a deep understanding, when it comes to the setting up, scaling and acquiring the consumer internet and TMT related business. So some insights coming from you there as well, just in a bit. With that, allow us to please welcome Zameer Nathani, the Senior VP and General Counsel, UFO Movies. Well, Zameer has a PhD from the Harvard Business School, US IP laws from Stanford University, IPR and ADR certifications from WIPO, that's United Nations, and private equity from the London Business School. So that's incredible. And with that, allow us to also greet on the virtual stage Prashant Ramdas, the Vice President and the Head Legal, Times Group, Mirchi. Well, an experienced media and entertainment lawyer, that Prashant is, experienced in the fields of advisory and production, films, televisions, web series, as well as broadcast, when we talk about the TV and the radio segments also of the entertainment industry. And Prashant is skilled in areas of litigation, domestic and cross-border contract negotiation, music acquisitions, joint ventures, and so much more. Well, our session sponsor, Khaitan & Co, thank you on behalf of Legal Era to you. And with that, Tanu, it's going to be over to you.
Thank you, Shikha, so much for the warm welcome and a great introduction to the panelists today. Good afternoon to all the panelists and everyone who's joined us today as audience. Thank you for taking out time on a Saturday. I think just as Shikha has introduced, we have an absolutely stellar panel today with us, with industry experts from different segments of the digital world. And the digital world, as we would know, is evolving so quickly and so rapidly at the moment, not just in India, but globally. There are newer platforms, newer technologies, formats, new businesses that we hear of, literally every other day. And in fact, I think a lot of traditional businesses are also increasingly trying to digitize and move to the digital world. And with that, the regulatory framework in India has also been evolving, with the government trying to bring about reforms, trying to revisit existing legislations and fill in the gaps somewhere. But of course, with any new innovation, any new change, there are challenges and there are issues that people grapple with. In the next 45 minutes or so, our agenda today is to hear insider insights from our panelists today in terms of the challenges that they have faced in their business ecosystems, and what do they think in terms of where the future is going and what are the gaps that still need to be bridged. Stay tuned with us. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting by the end of it. With that, I'm going to bring in Zamir first. Hi, Zamir. Zamir, I think, I'm going to just address the elephant in the room first, being our IT rules that got notified recently. And as we all know, they brought in a set of regulations in a framework which until now did not sort of exist specifically as a codified law. They brought in two separate categories of digital media publishers, being publishers of online curated content, publishers of news and current affairs. And several other terms around that, several other compliances around that in terms of how content is to be rated, how grievance redressal setup needs to be done, how platforms need to deal with users. So just wondering, your thoughts in terms of, where do you think when the regulations just about came out, what were the initial challenges that people were grappling with, and how have you sort of dealt with that?
Yeah. So, for me, it was very interesting time also, because what happened is that we are into data digitization business and movie digitization business, which was completely at standstill. And we started new OTT platform as well as a UGC site. We used a generated content site because TikTok was banned. So therefore we thought, let's move on a competitive side because we are a technology company. Now, when we did that, we saw this in the built-up area where, when these rules came out, the then Minister, Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad, said it's a soft touch oversight mechanism we are looking at. But what really was going on, we were seeing that, digital India was flaring up. People were expressing their views left, right, and center. Opinions which could not be heard before can be heard on social media. Nothing was unheard of. And therefore, people said that, things are going out of hand. And therefore, we need some oversight, some compliance to be put in place. And therefore, the government brought in the new rules in February 2021. Now, if you see the objectives and the challenges, if you're speaking about, number one was that this is to be executed by the corporate at their own cost and consequences. All right. Now, when you have such a law which is put into force, there are two distinctions which were made under this IT rule. One was a social media intermediary and one was a significant social media intermediary, which means you have user base of about more than 50 lakhs. Now, when you put this into execution, there is a turnaround time. There is a gap which is going to be there. There are certain compliances which may go out of the domain, and therefore
Recording in progress.
And therefore you need to put your systems as well as compliances in place, because otherwise there are consequences under the law. So the first challenge we had was that there was a due diligence mechanism to be put in place under the intermediary. Up till now, when I speak about this first issue, everybody was a flag bearer of Section 79 of the Information Technology Act, that I am just a platform, I am just a social media intermediary. I have taken reasonable precaution. If you have any problem, I can't do anything more than that. The 2021 IT rules requires all intermediaries to observe due diligence while discharging their duties, which is a departure from the 2011 guidelines. Now, there are certain new diligence requirements for intermediaries which were put in place. Like, for example, if you need to inform your users about the privacy policy or the user agreement, etc. False information with intention of causing injury or to profit is liable, and therefore the companies will have to put those checks and balances checklist in place, not only at the legal level but also at the IT level, so that once that checklist is passed on, and if you have those technologies, you can cater to the requirements of that particular rules. The number two challenge was the takedown policy. Now, every social media intermediary or an e-commerce platform had certain takedown policies which were put in place. You get notices from the music labels. You have a lot of issues which are coming up. You take it on face and take it down because that's under the Berne Convention, and therefore cease and desist, and therefore your takedown policies are then executed. That's how YouTube operates. Now, under the new rules, it was to immediately ensure that such information is removed by the platform within 36 hours. Those kinds of things which are against the interest of any sovereignty or security of the state, decency, morality, preventing incitement, etc., so on and so forth. Now, the challenge with the companies with larger operations globally is that it will be a difficult execution process where the government says that if it is not done, it causes larger damage to the public or the security. And if the corporate does not comply with it, it faces those consequences under the rules or the law. The third was the retention of the data. Now, previously, there was a limit given that 90 days you're supposed to store the data. The new 2020 IT rules requires you to have those data to be stored for about 180 days. And this also applies to people who have been removed or whose access has been disabled. Now, storing also comes at a cost, or if you're engaging any cloud company like AWS, etc., these are all costs which are there to the company. So this has been little enlarged, and therefore compliance is required. This was the third challenge. The fourth challenge was about assisting the inquiries from the government agencies. Now, previously, the government agencies would send the request to you if you're a setup, you have a particular setup in place where your officers are addressing those particular inquiries. The rules made it very clear that intermediaries will have to provide assistance to the relevant government agencies within 72 hours in matters relating to verification of identity, investigation, prevention of offenses, etc. This will mean that the companies will now have to set up more legal and other positions to cater the requirements, because now you are required to have a compliance with the law or the rules, which is good in a way for a legal industry, but it's an additional cost for the business towards the compliance. The fifth challenge we saw was the governance, the grievance redressal mechanism. Now, it should be very pertinent to note that grievance redressal mechanism has been significantly broadened by the 2021 rules against the 2011 guidelines. Not only should the intermediary publish the name, contact details, or mechanism to which a user can complain, but you have to also acknowledge that complaint in 24 hours and redress it within 15 days from the receipt, unlike the 1 month period which was earlier given. So this was the fifth challenge. The sixth challenge, two more. The sixth challenge was about identifying the messenger. So another decisive addition which the government made was that there was a requirement from the significant social media intermediary, primarily providing the messaging services, to enable identification of the first originator of information. All right. It was also in the discussion that there was a court order as per the Information Technology Procedure and Safeguard for Interception and all that rules of 2009. This was one of the requirements which have been existing. But those platforms which are driving their business on the basis of privacy would feel some amount of heat in that situation, because this has to be addressed on some form or the other, because privacy means privacy from all sorts of inquiries which are being made for you. The last one was that when 2021 rule also stipulated that the significant social media intermediary should also strive to deploy automated tools to proactively identify information which depicts about some heinous crimes, as well as information that are identical to what was previously a takedown order upon a court order. These are the 7 challenges which I think were the initial hardships which the companies faced, because they have to execute that. All right. And this was very important because, government cited public order in that. And if you remember Shreya Singhal versus Union of India in Supreme Court, the Supreme Court had held a very high threshold that the disturbance of the public order has to be distinguished from the act which are directed by individuals which do not disturb the society. So this was going to that particular extent and little beyond that, because government was at that time looking at many forces at play, and they wanted to address this fake news and conspiracy, as well as issues of copyright and piracy, which were in place. And therefore, these were put in place. But these are challenges. There are execution challenges which the companies initially faced on that. This is my submission on the challenges.
Thanks, Ameer. And I'm glad that you brought in the intermediary part of it as well, and how difficult the timelines have been to cope up with people. And we've sort of been trying to work with a lot of companies also to how to resolve and automate some of those processes. But just, maybe I'll bring in Mr. Neelakantan here. So if you could, talk about the publisher side of things, and, after the rules were notified, I think somewhere around May and June, the ministry also sent specific notices to everybody, right? Which sort of gave us an indication that it's not just that they've brought in something, but they're actually, sort of after people in terms of, ensuring that people are taking it seriously. And there was an entire inquiry on what is the status of compliance. And I recall talking to you in that time also around how to do some of those correspondences. But in terms of, providing that information, setting up the compliance on the publisher side, both for, let's say, OTT platforms and the news platform, which is, sort of an entirely different animal altogether. What are your thoughts in some of the things that were initial issues, or issues that, are still there, perhaps? So you're on mute, I think.
Thanks, Tanu. Thanks for introducing me. Hey, hi, Ashish. Good to connect with you again on the platform. And hi, Zamir. How are you doing, mate? Me and Zamir used to work together. Good to see you too.
Right.
Now, coming to the point at hand here, the very pertinent question today is this government started in 2014. The central government started in 2014 saying that digital platform will be freely accessible, and there will be digital transformation in India. It never said that it will tie your hands on the backside. The way it is going right now, it is prohibiting people from growing further. The literal interpretation of Article 19G or 19.2 has come into picture now, because 19.2 seems to be more stronger than the fundamental right itself under 19.1. And the way it is, the way it is going, it's the tail which is wagging the dog as far as I look at it. Now, I'll give you very specific reason why. When the notification came, there were hundreds of queries from hundreds of different IT companies, because none were regulated. There was a basic structure, and as Zamir rightly put it on, everybody was trying to come under the wings of Section 79 of the Information Technology Act, happily saying, oh, I am an intermediary, I want to keep my hands off any liability. So if you look at it from that way, to a situation where I am an intermediary, I need to set up a dispute resolution mechanism. I also need to publish what number of complaints I received at the end of the month, okay, to put it on my website as a process. This was something which was completely not in sync with the industry, which was not ready for it in any manner. Especially for a guy or a person who starts a startup. and ends up having 50 million subscribers in say 2 days time, which the digital media can do today, what happens to the compliance level if he becomes a significant social media intermediary in say 2 days time? Would he be having compliance levels available with him or not? Has not been thought through at all in the whole process. I also understand the difficulties that is operationally going on at the end as to how to grapple with the situation of what to report and what not to report. What is a dispute and what is not a dispute? What is just a customer care query which has been addressed to what is a customer complaint? That distinction has not been drawn. And my whole premise is on two simple stands. A, the government is saying, create a dispute resolution mechanism through the grievance officer. Now, once you set up a grievance officer, the next level that they ask you to create is the what you call that association of members that we go to. When you go to that association of members, what happens to that association of members? Or even you go to the ministry as well, okay, to the committee set up by the ministry, 15 days each time you go. I may end up having to block a website, okay, or a news article, or even a news channel for that matter, because at Jio, I work for Jio today. So as Jio, we don't know whom to block, whom not to block. We don't want to be the judge. But does the grievance officer have the right? Does the MIB has the right? Why should that content be blocked? Why should I be dragged into it because I am an OTT? That's a very pertinent question OTT wanted to ask. That clarification came in June 10th, saying that if you're a news aggregator, you can pass it on to the news provider. So if you see, from February, they took June 10th to June 10th, they took time to give clarifications. That is the length of time that they are trying to give even clarifications that is coming from the government. Now, that is the slow pace at which is giving. Now, even now, there are about 70 to 80 questions which they haven't answered as to how would a news aggregator like a Jio News or even say any other, you can say any other news aggregating app will comply with a Press Council of India or Press Council of India Act with Press Council of India conduct under it or Journalist Code of Conduct.
Right.
Nobody knows, because an aggregator need not worry about it. He's aggregating news and sending the news to people and giving the access to people. Now, how would they comply with it? So they clarified in June that, oh, you pass it on to the operator. But what happens if you are also integrated, like Jio News is integrated with other apps too? That means we are the operator for them. So technically, the law doesn't specify that I need to send it back to somebody else. It says that I am the news, I'm no more a news aggregator, I'm a news provider. Assuming, I say, for instance, I have a, one moment, please. Hello, sir. Mine and Ashish's ex-boss just called. Sorry for that. Sorry for the inconvenience. Yeah, so
No
we are very confused today as to how the government is going to look at me if I'm at second stage of distribution instead of the first stage of distribution. So if I'm collecting, say, from from our colleague or panelist here, okay, he's already there, Prashant. Now, if I collect something from Times Group and I publish that in Jio News, I know if I have a problem, I'll go to Prashant. But if Jio News gives news to somebody else of Times Group, okay, that tunneling is not provided in law today. So we are stuck with that. Would I have to notify that complaint in the list of my monthly complaints in my record as such and broadcast it at the end of the month? That clarity is also not there. If says you just pass it on to him. Whether I say it is a complaint with me or a complaint against Times, I should record it or not, that clarity doesn't give. So these processes, these gray areas, there are plenty. The only big advantage that I see is that the government viewed it with a very microscopic view, that anything which is against, say, sexually visible content or violence or religiously problematic content or disturbing the social fabric or affecting the foreign relations, they can go ahead and ask us to block. That was a decent ask. But what they have gone ahead with providing this is basically just gone overboard as far as I'm concerned. So my bigger problem is how to address this dispute resolution, subject to now what has happened in Bombay High Court, Rule 9.1 and 9.3 have got stayed. So it's become crazier how the other states are not interpreting it, especially Madras High Court, where it actually said that if a coercive action is taken, then you come to court, then we will see what kind of relief we can give you. So it's just going crazy. Each court is going in different directions. And Supreme Court, though commenting by the CJI himself, Sri N.V. Ramana, against the publication in articles against the judiciary and the judges, hasn't had the courage to say, okay, transfer all the matters to Supreme Court and handle it. So I think we are in the area of grayness today instead of black and white. I don't have a clear answer. I can actually invite others to give opinion on how to make it black and white, but I really don't want the government to make it black and white, because till that time, there is at least some relief to the confusion which is prevailing on ground.
Absolutely. Great insights, Mr. Neelakantan. And I think it's also very interesting to, sort of see that as a consumer of content, you spoke about aggregation and how different platforms at the back end are aggregated and sort of, fronting the content. But as a consumer of your content, you oftentimes don't even realize, the back end integration and the collaboration that different organizations have technically. Moving from there, I think just to also, Vandana, over to you next. I think like Mr. Neelakantan brought out some of those issues around a grievance redressal setup being expanded, a compliance officer, and some of those compliances that we saw in the IT rules being introduced. And those seem to have been replicated or proposed to be replicated in the new e-commerce rules also. What are your thoughts around?
One more point.
Just to add one more
point. I just read an article day before yesterday, or yesterday it was, where the Brazilian president has ordered absolutely to the contrary. He says, except for sexual violence or against national interests, or which creates communal and harmony or something like that, every other article must be allowed to be published.
Right.
Okay. In Brazil, because he doesn't want anything to be blocked. He doesn't want a situation like Jair Bolsonaro commenting against anti-COVID-19 vaccine to get banned on social media. So he has gone absolutely to the contrary. So absolutely full freedom of speech and expression. Whereas if you look at the American side of it, though America allows absolute freedom, it didn't even allow its ex-president to comply with the freedom and blocked its own president from the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, every place else. So it's a situation where we look at it from a different sphere. So the international sphere looks different.
Very interesting, of course. And as I often say that this whole dynamism and we say India is such a dynamic space at the moment, but when we talk about the digital world, I think it's dynamic globally. And all of us, perhaps, all governments perhaps need to learn from different geographies and come up with something that works for everybody. But moving on to Vandana, some of those things that have been replicated for e-commerce players also. And I know that there's a bit of a debate around that. How have you sort of looked at that? Is it something that you think would be easy to bring about? Are there issues with that? What are your thoughts?
So thanks, Tanu, for the question. Hi, everyone. So just quickly, I think I'll not touch base all the aspects with respect to the e-commerce regulation. I think they're much of a big list, and
absolutely.
Some of them are pain points for some of the startups and some of them are not. But just touching base, I think since we are talking about the grievance officers, etc. So I'll just pick up first the chief compliance officer related point, which is the CCO point, which just got introduced. There was a chief compliance officer requirement before, but now I think specifically coming the rules that the amendment that came on June 21st, 2021, the CCO concept has been now introduced within the e-commerce rules also, which was already a concept under the IT Act. And when it was the concept under the IT Act, it was not a blanket requirement there. It was also coming up with the specific specific requirement for SSMI, where there was also a specific threshold for the players. But with respect to the e-commerce regulations, it's now applicable to all e-commerce companies. And if you look back, the requirement that was under the IT Act, it was not that convenient for the companies to hire CCOs. The reason being, it brings with it the personal liabilities upon it's a personal liability of the chief compliance officer with respect to the adherence of the compliances. So currently, since the IT companies are facing, it's inconvenient for them to maintain the compliances, since being only it's applicable to SSMIs. If this comes applicable to the e-commerce companies and to all e-commerce companies, it's going to be very difficult for hiring. Plus, with the personal liability clause coming in, I don't think it will be easy for anyone to volunteer as a candidate for this, because as practically, and I'm telling you it's experience at 1mg also for us, no one exactly, you can't just pick and put an obligation, become a grievance officer. Like now everyone needs to take care of their personal aspects plus their professional other sides also. And everyone is very diligent about what role exactly they will be. And once you read it, the regulation, it really talks about it's your personal liability and you are actually owners for it. So putting that obligation by company on anyone, specifically individually, to make the adherence is going to be a bottleneck. And I think it really needs to be reconsidered from that perspective. So this is on the CC Chief Compliance Officer side. Then you want me to pick up the other key bottlenecks, so we can
absolutely anything that you'd want to share.
Yeah, I think so. There are multiple of them also, but I think I'll just pick two of the key ones, which is one of the ambiguities with respect to the e-commerce definition. And with this, so the e-commerce definition is somewhere coming in FDI regulation. There's also part of the FSSAI, now the Legal Metrology Acts, etc. also, and somewhere now being tweaked in the e-commerce regulation, which itself is too confusing around. It has so much ambiguity that ambit is very broad altogether. And I think that really needs to be looked in from all the parameters. Plus, there is a related party concept and associated entities concept also been plugged in along with it, which makes it a little more complicated around it. However, we all understand when it comes to the regulation name, it's very simple. It's Consumer Protection E-Commerce Rules 2020. What we could understand, the regulators, not the ambit was not only consumers there. And I think it has just crossed all the aspects, because it has covered something like fallback liability, flash sales, related party and data sharing, wherein I think data sharing, etc., have been under so many legislation, so many draft rules, even IT Act, etc., being getting covered. But now even e-commerce regulations also cover something with respect to data sharing between the entities, which is actually, I think, all the aspects which were roaming around in all the entities, I think, has been blocked into one of the rules, wherein, but the detailing out and I think granularities and I think if we talk about the nitty-gritties have not been touched. It's just that mostly have come up with like a restriction format. So I think it needs a lot of further discussion and deliberation with the regulators, etc., before anything coming in, because it will become a bottleneck for e-commerce companies and even small startups, etc., to operate. Like most of them are dependent upon the venture capital funding, etc., but due diligence, etc., is going to be very difficult to go to the market, do fundraise. And that has been our past experiences, because if you go by that, it's a conservative approach is all the investors are going to take up, usually take, is basis my past experience. And so that is something which needs to be streamlined for the ease of business for the e-commerce in the market. Just a last point, just quickly touching upon, a lot of industries have their own regulations. They are into the different regulatory regime. For example, talking about Tata 1mg, we are under the ambit of Drugs Cosmetics Act. So drugs cosmetics is something, there are e-pharmacy regulations in proposal. So if we are being governed through the e-pharmacy regulations, and we have IT Act also governing us as a platform, now e-commerce also coming in, I think there are 3 layers of compliances that we have to manage. So the net point I like to bring here is, there are entities which are getting covered under drugs cosmetics. There are one which are under FSSAI also, where there is an FBO registration also,
right.
etc. There are other legislations which are governing. So there should be an harmonization between these regulations and these policies, so that there should be compliance. There should be burden of compliances to be managed. There should be consumer related rights, and there should be tightened compliance checks also on the e-commerce entities. But however, it should be somewhere harmonized, that we are not ending up following everything and in a different fashion. And every time we can't end up taking conservative approaches also there. So from that aspect, summarizing, I think the legislations specifically should talk about and should have somewhere get harmonized with the platform and IT laws also, and e-commerce regulations also. So I think
Thanks, Vanna. I think you bring out a very interesting point that there needs to be some specific distinction made across different platforms, which perhaps is a little bit blurred at the moment in terms of the different amendments that are being brought about. Ashish, bringing in you, I think over your years of experience, you've seen different industries, right? Within the digital world, you've seen an e-commerce platform, you've seen an OTT platform, you've been on the traditional media side, and you've now, of course, one of the biggest intermediaries of the world today. Plus, also, I think just stepping back a little bit, I think everyone on this panel today, we all come from an era where internet did not even exist, right? And from there today, perhaps a few decades ago or 10, 15 years ago, perhaps we had just about 20 million users, internet users in India, to today where we're close to 1 billion, and it's constantly increasing. There's a 4% increase in internet users on a quarterly basis, statistically. So just overall, in terms of, we've of course had great insights from specific sector experts, but what are your thoughts on the overall space and regime? What are the gaps, challenges today?
Yeah, thanks, Tanu. I'll just pick up from where my past two panelists left. I would say that I know it is now becoming very complex to build internet businesses, thanks to ever increasing complex regulation. But I think that's good from two aspects, right? One, while lawyers are getting worried, okay, but smart entrepreneurs and techies are actually parting on these new opportunities. They are opening champagne bottles, right? While we are fretting to go to jail, and it's a huge opportunity for legal tech ventures, investors, entrepreneurs to actually help the current ecosystem to comply and build sustainable businesses. I don't think there is anything in the world which can't be done through technology. Humans are now going to space for travel, right? And not too sure how many of us know that three major legal tech companies got listed on NASDAQ in last 3 months, and the valuation is ranging between $2 billion to $5 billion. So humko dar lag raha hai, but people are partying. And actually, for us as lawyer community, if you see, it's like raining compliance officers, it's raining nodal officers, it's raining grievance officers, right? It is an opportunity for us as in-house counsels or legal counsels to seize this opportunity. But what we need to do is that we need to gain some unique skill sets to really seize opportunity and really do good for the ecosystem. So that's my opening remark on where my two panelists left, that it's opportunity. Let's look at this complexity as an opportunity and either build technology, invest in technology, or gain skills to act as compliance officers.
Very interesting, Ashish. Yes, please.
Yeah, no, this is how one should look at, just convert adversity into opportunities.
So amazing perspective, and I'm glad that someone brought that up, especially as in-house counsels and GCs, that you all are sort of looking at that.
No, I am investing into it, right? I'm making personal investment into some of the legal tech companies in that. Yeah.
Right.
Anyways.
Fantastic.
So. No, go ahead, please go ahead.
Prashant, moving to you, I think you've been in the more traditional side of the media business, and from a radio perspective, I do know today that a lot of traditional mediums, so to say, are also moving on to digital, right? And in the cusp of that transition, perhaps at the moment, how do you see this going forward? Like Ashish said, some of these things are opportunities. How is it for the traditional radio or television or anything that's going on digital? Today we have satellite on digital, radio on digital, right? How have you sort of seeing this from a business perspective? Do you see challenges in terms of compliance? Do you also see this? There's, you know, maybe perhaps a lot of positivity in terms of being able to move from a strict licensing regime to a regime which has perhaps a compliance framework, but perhaps it's still not as you know, tight as a traditional medium could.
Yeah, hi Tanu, and hi all the fellow panelists. There were great insights from various industries that we had right now. As a representative of an FM industry, we have our own unique set of challenges. I do look at it as a big opportunity to like transform from a traditional FM digital background to a digital platform, and that's the need of the hour. I mean, the traditional platforms have a limited reach. For FM specifically, it's totally dependent on the efficiency of your terrestrial network. If we have to shift on digital to keep up pace with the changing times, so that we have reached to a larger number of audience and to increase the user experience. Because at the end of the day, our major component is music, and music is all about experience. So in traditional medium, if you just dive into a parking lot of a mall, also you lose connectivity of a FM. So digital that way is a big thing, and all the traditional mediums are now slowly transforming onto the digital platforms. But we have our specific unique challenges in terms of the licensing regimes of the music, because as you know, currently we have certain regulations which gives us comfort in terms of a statutory licensing or compulsory licensing, but those are currently because of thanks to the ambiguities in the acts, the Copyright Act, it's been currently limited to the traditional media. And the digital medium, the platforms like Radio Mirchi, for example, who are trying to shift on a digital medium, they are not able to take the same protection in terms of the migration because of this ambiguities in the Copyright Act or something. So until and unless there is what you can say a user perspective taken. Now, whatever challenges I have heard up till now from the fellow panelists, the one thing is that the government has not taken public consultation, and this is the reason what we are saying, that there are a lot of lacunas in the regulations. The intention is not wrong, but the execution is flawed because of the same reason. If the unique challenges of each media sector are taken into consideration, if there is a considerable time spent to note there should not be a double regulation for any industry, if they're already complying with some laws or some regulations which do satisfy the requirements of the current digital regulations which are coming in, then there should not be a double regulation to that. And there can be specific exemptions which can be awarded to each industry based on those criteria. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Prashant. I think you bring out a very interesting point that between traditional and digital, there's a lot of overlap happening at the moment. Copyright legislation, you know, we spoke about it, you know, n number of times that it needs to be relooked at, it needs to be revamped, and it's lacking. Ashish, just back to you on that aspect. You know, we were talking about the last decade or so, and Prashant brings in a very interesting point about overlap. I think just your thoughts on, you know, how you see the overall framework, you know, sort of evolving and developing over a period of time.
Yeah, no, I remember when I started working for eBay when it acquired Bazi in 2004, right? At that point of time, the internet industry, per se was at a very infancy stage. And I think eBay's and India Times and Rediff, of the world were just starting to experiment on the e-commerce. And I do remember that, you know, whenever we used to go and interact with law enforcement and regulator, they used to think, yaar, ye bache aa gaye, ye kya internet pe video game khel rahe, you know. So I mean, we were not being taken very seriously. Maybe, you know, I was pretty young and my face was not very mature, or But no, we had tried our best, but people were not really willing to take us very seriously. But now the situation has turned, and this industry has totally disrupted all the brick and mortar old industry. But having said that, the laws, understanding of the law enforcement, regulators, judges, especially, and all the issues of the internet-related businesses have also evolved and matured over a period of time. We have seen iconic judgment, of Shreya Singhal, Putta Swamy, recent your Supreme Court judgment on crypto, very early judgment. When I used to fight, some of the Section 79 and privacy cases in Supreme Court. So these are very fantastic kind of judgments where courts have also tried to provide a balance between the growth of the sector with your public and private interest in mind. And, mind you, the international courts, because I now work for global companies, right? International courts have also started to closely watch internet and tech, your judgments, which are coming out of Indian courts. Because look, India is world's largest democracy, right? And Indian internet, users are the world's, largest in an open democratic, country. India is different from China, although China has more users than us, but their internet is not as open as ours, right? So everybody is very closely, looking at it. And if you, look at regulators, one of the most progressive laws they have made over last, 10 to 15 years, where they are also trying to balance the public and private, interest. There are many first, especially in the fintech laws. And I know that in the next session, you will be talking about fintech law. My dear friend Anu Tiwari from CAM is there, and I've worked very closely with him to build WhatsApp Pay systems. And I'm sure that he will have some point of view in terms of what fantastic fintech laws RBI is building. India's PDP bill, right? And the crypto bill. Honestly speaking, they are the most awaiting piece of legislation in the whole world. World is looking to India to pass a very practical and robust PDP bill. World is looking at India to pass a very good crypto bill. We have been watched, right? And India FDI policy in e-commerce, consumer protection rules of the e-commerce are also very hotly debated across the world. So people are looking at it, and our regulators have done a stellar job. There is a room for improvement, but I think a great start they have done. And I don't want to talk much about the IT Act intermediary rules, because we are juggling with that, which I leave it at a future date. But I think this is the best time to be in the technology and the internet business, in India. And I personally, believe that India will witness a skyrocket growth in the internet businesses, like what started in the US in early 2000, when Facebooks and Googles and eBays, Amazon were born over there. And innovative companies in India will come out from the internet world who will be valued hundreds of billions of dollars in India. And I think internet businesses can also help speed up our goal of India becoming a $5 trillion economy. The most important and last thing from my standpoint is that, we are still talking about a Web 2.0, which is like, e-commerce and fintech and Swiggies and Olas of the world, right? The world is very fast moving towards Web 3.0. The Web 2.0 is where internet is helping you to bridge a convenience gap. For example, why do I need to go to a mall during Mumbai monsoon session to really go and buy mobile phone or a trouser or a cap and all? I can just, why do I need to go to restaurant to say order food, right? So the Web 2.0 has actually solved the convenience problem. The real internet business is that where search, discovery, and consumption and payment, all the four things are happening on the internet. There's no human intervention outside of it, which I think is the future of the real internet, Web 3.0, which I think are going to be gaming, which will also be included from an entertainment standpoint. If you see, India has totally surpassed number of gaming app downloads in 2021, 50% more than the US. and to be then clubbed with crypto and NFT, right? This is going to be Web 3.0, right? Now, we as lawyers, do we know about it? If yes, are we prepared? If no, we need to prepare very, very fast, because legal services can also be delivered online at any point of time. There are plenty of smart lawyers. They don't need to have Indian degree to provide a fantastic legal advice to Indian entrepreneur. They can always take a very, very reasonable cost legal advice from a lawyer sitting in the US. Unless we upgrade, we will lose big time. But we need to understand in 2-3 years, world will go more towards Web 3.0. We as lawyers need to understand and be prepared for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashish. I couldn't agree more. I think this is definitely the most interesting time to be in this space and to invest in all of us, in ourselves, in terms of equipping ourselves to deal with what's coming. So thank you for that. I know we are running out of time. I've been sort of reminded a couple of times, but I do want to sort of just do a quick round of closing remarks from all the panelists, just in terms of what are their thoughts and what they think they would want the government to look at going forward, in terms of things that they think need immediate attentions for wherever there are gaps. And, like Ashish said, it's all new and it's all evolving, right? And there will be gaps. But so long as there are discussions, so long as we are ready to deal with those gaps, we will all be in a good place, actually. So just quick 1 minute round each on closing remarks from all of you. I'll start with Zamir, followed by Mr. Neelakantan, Vandana, Prashant, and Ashish and then.
Okay. So I think five things which I would highlight is that, and all the problems are revolving in that particular direction. One is your compliance with the law and regulations, and the media industry, the entertainment industry, the OTT or the social media, while they are facing that, they have been into this free environment. YouTube has been there for a long time. Facebook has been there for a long time. So this new compliances of the laws and regulation is one of the points which is looking at a pain point. The second is that there are concerns relating to data privacy, which has been more highlighted. Number 3, copyright and piracy issues have again been brought into limelight. And the fourth being the registration requirement, like, for example, previously, when we were talking that there should be no licensing and all that, today as an SMI or an SSMI, significant social media, you have to again go back and register to the INB, and you have to also submit your grievance reports. And the fifth is the adaptability changes. When we are talking about new solutions to uncommon problems, we are talking about big data, we are talking about artificial intelligence, automation, by which you're getting your targeted advertisement and your advertising policies and privacy policies revolve around it. I think these are 5 big issues where things are moving in the world of data, e-commerce and social media, etc. From a government standpoint, as we introduce the new rules, I think government will only have to provide some time of reasonability or flexibility for execution and implementation of that. Just to remember one of the correspondence or the communication with the government, when the government was asked that, why do you require things to be removed in 36 hours? The government said the problem is that you guys remove it after 36 hours, but the lynching and the mob and the riots, which has created a law and order situation, which again becomes highlights of the media, can go on and lives can be lost. So government is saying that we are also looking at a democratic setup, and therefore we are implementing these rules. I think there has to be some balancing ground which has to be worked out on the timelines part of it. Rules, of course, will be required if it is in the interest of your security of your nation, or if it is in the best interest of saving anyone from any criminal act which can be done against them. It includes any heinous crime or even frauds which have picked up during these times. I think that's from my side.
Thanks, Zamir.
Thanks, Amir. Mr. Neelakantan, your closing remarks.
Yeah, so I will just wanted to take up a few points which were discussed during the debate. Absolutely. And was not elaborated further. One, the social media debate on any law is happy to have it because it's just a white paper that we get from the public as well. Traditionally, only known people used to give comments. Now this social media is opening up so much of frontiers of opinions and stuff. I got such brilliant ideas as to how a grievance officer cannot allow blocking of a content. Never thought through it, but the law was gray on it. But then when you literally read it, go back and read it, it says, the kid was right. The child was trying very clearly. It doesn't say so. It doesn't have the right. Only the person above has the right and not the below one. So I think this should be allowed. The public white paper discussion should be allowed, and public input must be taken. And social media is a good way of getting inputs. The other issue is the copyright issue, which Prashant and even Zamir have discussed. I think the copyright issue got really got messed up big time because of the Bombay High Court judgment, where it said very clearly in the interim order, not the final one, that the digital platforms are not covered by it. And I think that should have that, yeah. But the Chandigarh judgment, Indrajit Singh, it was very clear. They said that guy was very smart. He said, "I'll file a petition for mandamus and certified mandamus or something like that in Punjab and Haryana High Court, asking for appointment of the of the panel." So it was very crazy. And then finally, the deputy copyright registrar ended up giving him an interim order from 2017 to 2020. And that guy happily pays. There's subsequent litigation too, which says, you have to pay. If you don't pay duty, then you file a civil suit, because somebody went to the High Court and says, in that writ you allowed, I'm filing another writ to quash that order. So that got thrown off. It says you file a civil suit for recovery of your money. So it was a good debate. But as a lawyer, it's a happy thing to happen. But as an officer in the office, looking at digital space and digital content, it's a very sad story. And you cannot take this stand of saying, I want 31D compliance of Copyright Act with any of the major players today, because they may really take their arms up against you and stop denying you content as such. And to get a 31D relief, it will take you months on. And Prashant can tell you more about it.
Great.
The other issue which I also like is what Ashish said. See, Web 1.0 was just information. Web 2.0 was interaction. Web 3.0 is a lot more. And that is what I think Ashish has put very nicely. And we have to still see, when the cars will be driven, by machines and stuff, and I'll be waiting. Electricity bills get paid when I'm driving my car or doing something else. Everything gets done. But it's all together that's going to happen. What he said, crypto, gaming, NFTs, whatever, more self-driving cars, or even self-driving drones for that matter. So bringing on to the next aspect of the matter, space law. India doesn't have a space law today. And, LEOs, the low orbiting satellites, are the next big changes that, world is trying to bring in. Look at Elon Musk. He's trying to put up 30,000+ LEOs on over the orbit to operate his world of drones all over the world. And, this is something which is going to be a very different, thing to look at. Because if one satellite damages the other, the countries deal with each other. There's no law here today in India as such. So I think as we go, lawyers' work will going to increase drastically. Satellite was also governed by just 5 traditional old, treaties, and not by local laws. And the Indian law is yet to be developed on that. There's some draft bill available, but I don't think it's going any far away. But another thing is the PDP bill. Now, if it gets passed, it favors the corporates. If it doesn't get passed, it favors the user. That's the way I look at it. But the good or the bad part of it is also storing of data. I think we haven't monetized the ability to store how value of data is in India. I think that's one thing which nobody seems to have understood at all as to why the data of Indians should be kept in India. I think even Justice Sri Krishna gave it up after the amendment of the 2017 PDP bill in 2019 when the amendments came through. But technically, that's where the strength of our country is in digital era, data. China controls it drastically. That's why they have so much information available at hand and they're developing so fast. India is pretty liberal. And that's what Ashish said. The world is looking at these 2 laws when they're going to come out, and they're going to have a different abilities to have. The most important aspect is how the grievance will be addressed. I think ultimately the consumer who comes and says, I have been wronged, it will take 15 days for us to fix it, except in case exemplary case of big sexual explicit content, in which case we have to block it in less than a day time or something like that. But overall, if you see, it is trying to give us a very clear path as to whether to block the content or move forward. And as Rashi said, that's why every business guy is now clapping and having a champagne bottle, keeping next to him and trying to open it, to have enjoying the situation that the law is very light against us. They can only block content. Happy to block, bring in next.
No. I was not talking about those business people. I'm talking about those who are investing in legal tech.
I understand, Ashish, both ways.
Great points, Mr. Neelakantan. So basically, copyright legislation, role of the grievance officer, Web 3.0 are the takeaways from Mr. Neelakantan's closing remarks. Vandana, moving on to you.
And in the interest of time, I'll just pick up only one point. I think everyone covered most of everything. And I think it was more, which I emphasized before also, which was more on the overlapping legislation and applicability parameters for the specific e-commerce regulation. I think that harmonization is very important. And that is something which all should deliberate about and actually work with the regulators and different bodies, because otherwise in the long run, it will be a little difficult which is good, an opportunity for the lawyers, I understand, which is what Ashish mentioned, but in order to get business and to work in a streamlined manner, that harmonization is something which is the need of the hour. So I'll just summarize with that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Prashant, over to you.
I will take less than 1 minute. I think laws will always be complex. I have seen over the last 15 years, law can never catch up the advancement of technology and the business model. I think we as lawyers, we need to be trained and tuned to live in ambiguity, embrace that, and just help the business to grow and grow ourselves. Just keep open mind. Dar ke aage jeet hai. You have to conquer the dar, uske aage jeet.
Absolutely. Over to you, Prashant.
Yeah, I agree what Ashish just mentioned from the lawyer's perspective. And from the business perspective, I think there have been a lot of consultations which have been initiated by the DPIIT and all, which are very welcome. But the enforcement of it is a major issue. I think we should invest a lot of time in these consultations and resolving the unique challenges so that there are no litigations following it. So we now, as Mr. Neelakantan rightly pointed out, the 31D corner. So it's just a representative of the challenges faced by the users right now. There is no clarity on who does what and the definitions in law, and because of that, the broadcasters like us have been arm twisted and everything. So what if those issues have been addressed right at the time of when their law is drafted and the proper consultation is taken and action is taken on that, then I think a lot of issues can be resolved at that point itself. Because I don't think regulations are bad, but they should also not be a burden on the businesses, and it should strike a balance between the consumer interest as well as the ease of doing businesses, which in turn will only incentivize the foreign businesses to invest in India and help grow the industries.
Super, excellent, Prashant. I think really this topic is a subject that needs an entire day of session, perhaps because there's so much to talk about and there's so many different insights from different segments. But I'm going to close this right now. And thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the panelists for this very, very interesting session. I do think we are wanting of time here in terms of what we could cover and talk about, but limitations of time. Over to you, Shikha.
Thank you, Tanu, and thank you, panel, for taking us through the legal tech scenes.